In this video, we'll be taking a look at 5 NHL games happening on December 9th, 2025, and providing you with free team picks and total picks for each one of those games, so 10 picks in total. Welcome back to Cash Out Sports. Let's dive right into it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell icon to get notified as soon as these videos get released, so that you have more time to plan out your bets as we provide these videos on a daily basis. I can guarantee that you'll have all the important information that you'll need on these 5 NHL games after fully watching this video. One more thing before we start, if you would like to gain access to our best exclusive sports picks to take your journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Now let's get started. Columbus Blue Jacket versus Carolina Hurricanes. The Columbus Blue Jackets head into Raleigh on Tuesday to face the Carolina Hurricanes at Lenovo Center, where the crowd usually turns the place into a wall of noise. It is very much a home rink advantage for Carolina, so it makes sense that they come in as the favorite. Still, price matters, not just who looks better on paper, and this matchup gives you a bit to chew on if you like the underdog with a little grit and a decent road pulse. Columbus already has 7 wins away from home, which is not elite, but it is enough to prove they are not terrified of another team's logo at center ice. They are volatile, sure, but that volatility can be your friend when you are catching points. On the other side, the Hurricanes have stalled a bit in the attacking zone lately, with only 2 or fewer goals in 5 of their last 7 games. That type of mini slump can make heavy home chalk feel a bit fragile, especially if the favorite relies on rhythm and quick puck movement to wear opponents down. When the goals dry up, the margin for error shrinks, and that is often exactly where road teams hanging around the spread start to look interesting. Columbus was shut out in their last outing, which never looks pretty on a scoreboard, but this same group has also shown they can suddenly put up a crooked number when things click. That hot and cold pattern frustrates coaches, yet bettors sometimes live off that chaos. With the Hurricanes dealing with recent scoring inconsistency and the Jackets already proving they can handle life on the road, the gap between these two on a given night may not be as wide as the line suggests. Factor in that you are getting almost 2 times your money if the dog shows up and competes for 60 minutes, and the case for the underdog spread really comes together near the final horn. As our first pick for this matchup, the Columbus Blue Jackets to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. On a season level, the Blue Jackets are averaging 2.97 goals per game and cashing in on 18.3% of their power play chances. That is not a juggernaut, but it is enough to be dangerous when they enter the zone with pace and get a few looks with the man advantage. The Hurricanes, for their part, sit at 3.32 goals per game while converting 15.3% of their own power plays. So even with their recent funk, their overall offensive profile still leans toward a team that knows how to generate chances, especially at home. Defensively, things open up even more. Columbus is allowing 3.38 goals per game and killing only 72.2% of opposing power plays. That penalty kill number, honestly, is the kind of thing that keeps assistants staring at video on tablets for hours. It also is the kind of weakness that can turn an ordinary game into a track meet if Carolina finds any flow on special teams. On the other side, the Hurricanes allow 2.89 goals per game and kill 79% of penalties. That is respectable, but it is not a total shutdown profile, and if the Jackets respond to being blanked in their last game with one of those bounce-back offensive explosion nights they are capable of, the ice can tilt into a chance trading style very quickly. Here is the thing, when you put those numbers and recent trends together, you end up with 2 teams that can both score and concede in spurts. Columbus brings a shaky penalty kill and streaky attack. Carolina brings a higher scoring baseline but a current dip that may not last much longer. And both sides have enough talent to punish mistakes if this turns into a game of rushes. If the Jackets manage to light the lamp after that shutout, and the Hurricanes' offense wakes up even partway from its slump, the ingredients for a higher scoring contest are all sitting right there waiting to be used. As our fifth pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Boston Bruins versus St. Louis Blues. On Tuesday, the Boston Bruins, sitting at 17-13-0 with 34 points and tied for first in the Atlantic, open a road swing in St. Louis against the Blues. It is a pretty interesting spot, a strong Eastern team starting a trip against a Blues group that has been wobbling yet still dangerous at home. Boston comes in with 3 wins in its last 4 games, and they have hit at least 4 goals in each of those 3 victories. That is not nothing, especially for a team that started the season a bit off tempo. The road form is still uneven, with a 6 to 8-0 mark away from home, but it does pair up against a St. Louis team that is only 5 to 6-4 on home ice. So neither side is flawless in this building, yet one clearly carries more momentum. Here is the thing, when you look at the body of work over the season, Boston has simply been sharper. The Bruins have 6 more wins overall and are 3-1 in their last 4 games. St. Louis, on the other hand, is 4-4 in its last 8, which is basically treading water. You add in the matchup history and it tilts even further. The Bruins have taken each of the last 5 games in St. Louis and 6 of the last 8 overall, so this is not a building that has bothered them much recently. The Blues' bigger issue is that they just do not score enough. They sit with the 4th worst offense in the league, putting up only 2.5 goals per game, and that thin scoring shows up often enough to be a pattern rather than a fluke. Boston is better on both sides of the puck, and that matters when you are trying to figure out which team is likely to handle a full 60 minutes. After that slow start, the Bruins have won 13 of their last 19, which is more like the version people expected. Matchup trends keep lining up the same way. Boston has dominated recent trips to St. Louis, taking 5 straight on the road there. The Blues have also struggled against Eastern Conference opponents, dropping 11 of the last 16 against that side of the league. That is a lot of little arrows pointing in one direction. Goaltending does not really rescue the Blues either. Jeremy Swayman has taken 3 of his last 4 starts, and in 3 of those games he has allowed 1.85 goals or fewer. That is a goalie who is giving his team a real base to work from, especially with an offense that can at least reach league average or a bit better. On the other side, Jordan Binnington has dropped 2 of his last 3 appearances, and the goals against numbers in that stretch are rough, with games of 3, 5, and an ugly 11.54. It is hard to feel good about that against a confident opponent. Special teams add another layer. Boston owns the 5th best power play in the league, while St. Louis sits all the way down at 26th on the penalty kill. When a team that struggles to keep the puck out of its own net shorthanded faces a power play that can move the puck cleanly and finish, it usually tilts key moments of the game. Honestly, that is often where close games crack open. Put all of this together, and it becomes very hard to trust the St. Louis side to keep up for a full game. As our first pick for this matchup, the Boston Bruins money line is our full game side pick. Boston has seen the total stay under in 4 of its last 6 road games and in 6 of its last 9 games played during December. That hints at a team that, despite some recent bigger offensive nights, is playing in plenty of tighter, more controlled contests, especially away from home. St. Louis leans even harder in that direction. The Blues have had the total finish under in 9 of their last 12 overall and in 4 of their last 5 at home. That repeat pattern is hard to ignore. It ties back to their scoring issues, because a team that sits 31st or next to last in goals per game at 2.5 is naturally going to drift toward lower totals. Boston's offense is not poor at all. It sits a respectable 13th in goals per game at 3.1, but here the context matters more than the raw number. A better offensive club facing a low-scoring opponent with a solid goaltender behind it often ends up in measured, methodical games. There can be bursts of pressure and a couple of strong pushes, yet it does not always translate to a wide-open scoreline, especially if one team is stuck grinding for every chance. Swayman's season numbers support a cooler scoring environment too. He carries a 2.70 goals against average and a .913 save percentage, which are perfectly solid for keeping games in check. When that kind of goaltending meets an opponent that already has trouble finishing chances, the path to a lower total is pretty easy to see. The Blues' struggles putting the puck in the net are not new, and they are not subtle. So when you stitch the trend profile together, you get Boston playing plenty of unders on the road and in December, St. Louis living in the under range at home, and a matchup where one team is reliable defensively and the other is unreliable offensively. It does not guarantee a low score, nothing does, but it does tilt expectations toward a game that stays under rather than turns into a wild shootout. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Dallas Stars versus Winnipeg Jets. The Dallas Stars and Winnipeg Jets square off on Tuesday at Canada Life Centre, and it feels like 2 very different seasons colliding in one rink. On one side, you have a Stars group that has simply put more tallies in the win column, sitting with 6 more victories than Winnipeg. They have traveled well too, already stacking up 10 road wins, which is not nothing when you are flying around time zones and living out of hotel rooms. Recent form just reinforces the story, with Dallas on a 7-1 heater over its last 8 games, while Winnipeg has stumbled to a 2-7 stretch in its last 9 without its usual backbone in net, as Hellebuyck deals with an injury. Here is the thing, when a team loses its true number 1 goaltender, it is not only the save percentage that drops. The whole defensive posture tends to sag a bit. You can see that in the way the Jets have been leaking goals and struggling to stop the bleeding late in games. They come into this one having dropped 3 of their last 4, while the Stars have taken 3 of their last 4, and that contrast in rhythm matters more than people like to admit. Dallas is not just winning, it is scoring with some swagger on the road. 16 goals in its last 4 away games tells you their top 6 is getting to dangerous areas, and the depth lines are chiming in often enough that opponents cannot just key on one unit. Their special teams have been clicking as well, with the power play converting on more than 30% of its chances over that recent stretch. For a league where most clubs are happy just to be in the low 20s on the man advantage, that kind of conversion rate puts real pressure on any sloppy opponent. Winnipeg, meanwhile, is having trouble at both ends when it matters most. The penalty kill has not been great, and that would be polite phrasing. They have struggled defensively over their recent home sample, giving up 11 goals in their last 3 games in that building. Offensively, they are not exactly lighting it up either, with only 7 goals scored in those same 3 home outings. That might not sound catastrophic at first glance, but when the goals against column climbs and the goals for column crawls, you get the frustrating pattern the Jets are living in right now. They have done a bit better on their own power play, converting over 20% of their chances lately, which is respectable, but it runs straight into a Dallas team that has handled penalties well. The Stars have given up only 5 goals in their last 3 road games, which shows their structure is holding even in tough buildings, and their penalty kill has been doing its job. When a team can both generate on the man advantage and shut things down while short-handed, it usually sets the tone for how the game feels from the opening draw. You can say the Jets have had a tough schedule with a road-heavy couple of weeks, and that is fair. Still, the broader picture over the last month has been disappointing for them, with losses starting to stack up and frustration creeping in. Dallas, by contrast, continues to show balance at both ends of the ice, and it has not really mattered whether it is at home or away. With the road team bringing what is described here as the 4th best offense and the 3rd best defense in the league this season, and Winnipeg struggling to get out of its own way, the matchup tilts toward the club that is already trending upward rather than the one hoping this is the night the slump magically ends. As our first pick for this matchup, the Dallas Stars money line is our full game side pick. Dallas comes in averaging 3.4 goals per game on the season. Over its last 3 outings, that has dipped only slightly to 3.33 goals per game, which still signals a steady offense rather than a hot streak that could vanish overnight. During that same mini-run, the Stars have converted 25% of their power play chances, so their special teams remain a real factor whenever the whistles start. Across the ice, Winnipeg has not exactly been putting on a defensive clinic in its recent stretch. The Jets are described as having killed only 25% of their penalties in their last 3 games while allowing 10 total goals in that window. That penalty kill figure looks extremely poor for NHL standards, and even if you treat it as a rough pointer rather than a precise measure, it still paints a picture of a team that is struggling to control games when short-handed and generally giving up too much. On the flip side of the puck, Winnipeg averages 3 goals per game overall, which is solid enough on paper. Recently, though, that output has sagged to 2.66 goals per game over its last 3 contests, and, more worryingly, they have not converted a single power play opportunity in that span. When your man advantage is stuck in neutral, it is hard to turn tight games into high-scoring ones, even if the 5-on-5 play is decent. They now run into a Dallas penalty kill that has been spotless over its last 3 games, killing 100% of its penalties and giving up only 3 total goals across that stretch. That combination, a sputtering Jets power play and a sharp Stars penalty kill, naturally pulls expectations for explosive scoring down a bit. It suggests longer stretches of even strength play where mistakes are limited and scoring chances are more selective. There is also the history between these 2 teams to consider. The Jets and Stars have finished under the total in 8 of their last 10 meetings, which hints at a matchup that tends to tighten up, with both sides limited more than their season-long averages might suggest. Trends like that are not guarantees, of course, but when they line up with the recent offensive slowdown for Winnipeg and the strong defensive notes for Dallas, it becomes harder to expect a wide-open track meet. Given the offensive averages, the recent goal totals, the special teams form on both sides, and the consistent pattern of unders when these teams see each other, the most reasonable expectation is that they fall short of the projected number rather than blow past it. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Buffalo Sabres versus Edmonton Oilers. The Buffalo Sabres and Edmonton Oilers square off Tuesday at Rogers Place, and this one has that classic tired road team versus surging home attack feel to it. Edmonton's offense has been rolling over the last 2 games, and it is not just empty numbers either. When this group starts stringing passes together and the building gets loud, they score in waves, and it feels like every shift can tilt the ice. Buffalo skating in on the second night of a back-to-back is not exactly ideal, especially for a team that is not built on structure-first defense. Fatigue usually shows up in the legs, but in hockey betting it often shows up on the scoreboard. Buffalo's penalty kill is going to be under real pressure here. Edmonton is tied with Pittsburgh for the top power play percentage in the league at 33.3%, and that is not some early season fluke when you see they have gone 5 for 6 with the man advantage over their last 2 games. When a power play is humming like that, one small mistake at the blue line or one slow stick in the passing lane can turn into a puck in the back of the net in about 2 seconds. There is also a bit of payback sitting in the background. The Oilers were handled 5-1 in Buffalo in that earlier meeting, even though they outshot the Sabres 33-28. That is the kind of result that sticks with a team, especially a star-driven group that prides itself on outscoring problems. Colton Ellis stole the show in that one, but expecting him to repeat that performance feels like wishful thinking given his recent stretch, with 13 goals allowed over his last 3 starts. Hockey goalies can run hot for a night, but when the trend is going the other way, it usually matters more for a rematch. Buffalo is also walking into this spot after a brutal week that featured 4 straight losses and a defense that looks like it is constantly scrambling. On the road, things have been even shakier, with just 2 wins away from home, and those long changes and matchups against last change at Rogers Place are not friendly. Edmonton, on the other hand, has quietly taken 3 of its last 4 games, and the offense is back in that dangerous, borderline scary form that makes them such a tough fade. Will it last all season? Hard to say honestly, but with the Sabres leaking chances and traveling on tired legs, the setup strongly leans one way by the time the final horn sounds. As our first pick for this matchup, the Edmonton Oilers to win and cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. Stuart Skinner has quietly put together a very strong 3-game run, allowing only 3 goals during that stretch. That is exactly what coaches want from a starting goalie, a calm baseline that keeps the team from chasing every game. Even so, it is hard to fully trust the Oilers in their own zone over a larger sample. They sit 18th in penalty killing at 80.8%, and they are also 18th in expected goals against at even strength, which basically says they give up a middling amount of quality looks. Not terrible, not locked down either. Here is the thing, given how Edmonton's forwards are firing right now, this offense could realistically get to 5 goals on its own in this matchup. When you have elite talent and a power play finishing at over 30%, the ceiling in any given game is very high. You blink, and suddenly there are 3 goals on the board halfway through the second period. Buffalo should not be ignored on the offensive side either. The Sabres rank 8th in expected goals for at even strength, which tells you they know how to create chances, even if the puck does not always cooperate. A tired team can still score, especially one with enough skill to jump on loose pucks and broken plays. In a game where one side is driving pace and the other can still push back offensively, the ice tends to open up and mistakes tend to multiply. That usually favors more goals, not fewer. Put all of that together, the hot Edmonton attack, the shaky defensive metrics, the tired but offensively capable Sabres, and it lines up more with a track meet than a slog. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Colorado Avalanche versus Nashville Predators. Here is a quick roadmap before we get into it. First comes the side angle on who is more likely to cover the spread. Then we shift gears into how the scoring environment sets up for the total. I will keep those lanes separate so nothing gets muddied. Colorado heads to Nashville looking every bit like a powerhouse on a heater. They are 8-1 in their last 10, which is the kind of stretch that makes opponents tighten up before the opening face-off. With only 2 regulation losses on the season and a 3-point cushion over Dallas at the top of the league table, they are skating like a group that expects to win, not hopes to. That mindset shows up in the details, from their clean exits to the way their forwards reload through the neutral zone. Nathan MacKinnon is driving everything right now with 49 points, and he looks like he is building a pretty strong Hart Trophy case. He is the engine, but he is not alone. His line is rounded out in this write-up by Martin Necas on the wing and backed by Cale Makar, who is a legitimate Norris Trophy candidate. When those three are on the ice together, it is a track meet, and very few teams can keep up with that pace and skill for a full shift, let alone over 60 minutes. Zooming out a bit, Colorado has simply been the better team in almost every department this season. They have more than twice as many wins as Nashville, and they grade out as having both the most dangerous attack and the stingiest defense in the league. The Predators, by contrast, sit on the other end of the spectrum with a bottom-tier offense, 5th worst, and a defense ranked 4th from the bottom. That is a rough combo when you are staring down a group that can bury you early and then squeeze the life out of a game. Form does not really rescue Nashville here either. Colorado has been red-hot with an 8-2 mark in its last 10, and they have handled the road just fine at 10-2-4 away from home. The Predators are only 6-8-2 in their own building and just 1-3 in their last 4 in Nashville. Even though they have shown some improvement recently, they have still given up at least 5 goals in 2 of their last 4 games at home, which hints at the same old defensive leaks popping back up. These two clubs are also sitting on opposite ends of the Central Division standings, which matches the way this matchup feels on paper. Colorado already shut Nashville out in their previous meeting this season, and while every game has its own rhythm, that kind of result tends to linger in the back of a team's mind. It is hard to find a clean path where Nashville slows down this attack for a full game, let alone flips the script and controls play long enough to protect a spread. As our first pick for this matchup, the Colorado Avalanche to win and cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. Colorado is coming off a 3-2 win against Philadelphia on December 7th. And their season-long profile is clear. They sit at the top of the league in scoring at 4 goals per game and also lead in shots at 34.2 per game, which means they do not just rely on finishing talent, they generate volume. When a team throws that many pucks on net, games tend to open up, even when the opponent intends to slow things down. Nashville's recent form pushes in the same direction, but for different reasons. They just dropped a 6-3 decision to Carolina on December 6th, and their defensive numbers have been rough all season, allowing 3.6 goals per game, which sits 31st in the league. They often look a step slow in coverage. That kind of defensive record usually points to structural issues as much as goaltending, and when you are facing a high-tempo opponent, those cracks can widen fast. Offensively, Nashville averages only 2.6 goals per game, so it might sound like they pull the total down. But they have shown they can strike when opponents get stretched, and Colorado's style can drag teams into back and forth hockey. When the Avalanche are pushing the pace and firing from everywhere, the other side often ends up trading chances, sometimes by choice, sometimes because they simply cannot get the puck out. That is how you get those games where the score suddenly jumps from 2-1 to 4-3 in what feels like 5 minutes. So even with Nashville's attack being below average overall, the mix of Colorado's relentless offense, their shot volume, and the Predators' leaky defense points more toward a matchup where goals keep coming from both directions rather than a slow grind. It is not that every shift will look wild, but the underlying numbers in this write-up suggest a higher event game more often than not. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed, subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them, so leave a comment down below and do let us know.